husband was acting weird, but I never expected my own kid to be the one who exposed him. Like, out of everyone in the world. My 6-year-old. And the worst part is it didn't even happen in private. It happened in front of people. Real people. Faces I still have to see. I swear if I could go back and pause that moment, I would. Okay, let me start from the beginning. Because this whole thing didn't just happen overnight. It built up slowly. And looking back now, the signs were there. Loud. I just ignored them. Me and my husband, let's call him Jason, had been together for 9 years. Married for 7. We had one kid, Liam. He's 6 loud curious and says literally everything on his mind. No filter, none. At the time, I thought it was cute. No, yeah, not so much. Anyway, our life was pretty normal. Nothing crazy. I stayed busy with work and taking care of Liam, and Jason worked long hours. At least that's what he said. At first, I didn't question it. I mean, bills were paid. Food was on the table. He'd come home tired sometimes, quiet sometimes on his phone. A lot, but I just assumed it was stress. But then little things started happening. Like he suddenly cared way more about his appearance. And I don't mean normal, oh, I got a haircut type stuff. I mean new clothes out of nowhere. Expensive cologne. Gym every other day. I literally remember looking at him one morning and thinking, who are you trying to impress? But I didn't say anything. I should have, but I didn't. Then came the phone thing. This man used to leave his phone everywhere. Kitchen counter, couch, bathroom, didn't care. Now it was glued to him. Like he would take it to the bathroom. Face down, notifications off. Password changed. I noticed it the first time I casually picked it up to check the time, and it asked for a passcode. I was like, okay, when did that happen? I asked him about it too. I said, why'd you change your password? And he laughed. Actually laughed. Said work stuff, they told us to make everything more secure. Work stuff, yeah sure. I should have pushed more, but again I didn't, because part of me didn't want to know. Then Liam started saying weird stuff. And I don't mean like kids say funny things weird. I mean specific. One day we're in the kitchen. I'm making lunch and Liam just randomly goes, Mommy, who's Emma? I froze. Like actually froze. Because I didn't know any Emma, so I asked him trying to sound normal, what do you mean, baby? And he shrugs like it's nothing. Daddy talks to her on the phone. He says her name a lot. I felt my stomach drop, but I played it off. Oh, maybe it's someone from work? And Liam goes, no, she laughs a lot. That part stuck with me. I laughed it off in front of him, but inside, my brain was already racing because why is my husband talking to some Emma so much that our kid notices? But again, I didn't confront him. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself kids mix things up. I told myself a lot of things just so I wouldn't have to deal with it. A few days later, Jason comes home late again. Like really late. Liam was already asleep and I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch TV, but really just waiting. He walks in smelling like cologne, not his usual amount either, like strong. I looked at him and said, you're late. And he goes, yeah, work ran over. No hesitation, no explanation, just casual. I stared at him for a second and I swear something in my gut just felt off, like this isn't right. But instead of calling it out, I just nodded because I didn't want to start something. I didn't want to be that wife. You know, the one who accuses without proof. So I stayed quiet. Big mistake. The next morning, Liam said something again. And this time it wasn't just weird, it was specific. We were in the car dropping him off at school and he goes, Mommy, are you gonna meet Emma too? I literally turned my head so fast, I almost missed the turn. What? And he goes all casual again. Daddy said Emma is really nice. He said you'd like her. My heart was pounding like loud. I tried to keep my voice steady. When did Daddy say that? And Liam thinks for a second yesterday on the phone. He was smiling. Smiling. That word hit me hard because when was the last time Jason smiled like that with me? Yeah, exactly. That whole day I couldn't focus on anything. Work, forget it. All I could think about was that name Emma over and over. And the way Liam said it like it was normal, like it was someone important. I kept replaying everything in my head. The late nights, the phone, the cologne, the gym, all of it. And suddenly it started making sense. Too much sense. I remember sitting in my car after work, just staring at the steering wheel like no, there's no way. But at the same time I knew, I just didn't want to admit it yet. That night I decided I was going to say something. I had to, I couldn't keep pretending. Jason came home same as always, casual, calm, like nothing was wrong. And I looked at him and said, who's Emma? Straight up. No build up, no warning. And for a split second I saw it, that look. The one people try to hide. Panic. But then just as fast he smiled. Actually smiled. And said, Emma, she's just a coworker. Why? Just a coworker, of course. I stared at him trying to read him, but he was so calm. Too calm. And then he said something that should have been my final red flag. He laughed and added, why are you jealous? Jealous, I should have left right there. But I didn't because I didn't have proof. Not yet, and I needed to be sure. So I dropped it. Pretended everything was fine. But inside, yeah, I was done pretending because something was definitely going on. And I was going to find out what no matter what. But I had no idea I wouldn't be the one to expose him. Because a few days later, at a completely normal family event, my son opened his mouth and said something that ruined everything. So the normal family event I'm talking about? It was Jason's mom's birthday dinner. Nothing crazy. Just his parents, his sister, her husband, a couple cousins, and us. We've done these dinners a million times. Same house, same food, same small talk. And if I'm being honest, I almost didn't go. Something in me just didn't feel right that day. Like my gut was trying to warn me. But Jason was acting completely normal, even extra nice. He was like, come on, it's just dinner. Mom will be upset if we don't show up. So I went. Mistake number 1. We get there and everything feels off. Not obvious, not something anyone else would notice. But I felt it. Jason was on his phone more than usual, smiling at it, typing fast, locking it quick when I walked by. At one point I literally stood behind him for like 2 seconds, and he angled the screen away from me. Be serious right now. But again, I said nothing. I just watched. Dinner starts, everyone's talking, laughing, passing food around. Liam is sitting next to me, kicking his legs under the table, talking nonstop like usual. Jason's across from us, and every couple minutes his phone lights up. And every time it does, he glances at it. Every single time. At one point his sister jokes, dang, who keeps texting you? You got a secret girlfriend or something? Everyone laughs. Everyone except me. And Jason? He laughs too. Like it's funny. Like it's not literally the truth. He goes, yeah. You caught me, all sarcastic, and takes a sip of his drink. I swear I felt my chest tighten right there. Because why does that joke feel a little too real? But I kept quiet again. Because now I'm not just suspicious. I'm watching, and I needed to see how far this went. So I'm sitting there trying to act normal, and Liam is just being Liam, talking, asking questions, interrupting people. At one point, he's telling Jason's mom about his day at school, and then out of nowhere, he says it. Clear as day. Daddy talks to Emma more than Mommy. The table went quiet. Like, instantly. Forks paused. Conversation stopped. Even the TV in the background felt louder. I froze. Actually froze. And I slowly turned my head toward Jason. He was already looking at Liam. And his face? Yeah, I'll never forget that look. Pure panic. His mom goes, Emma? Who's Emma? And before Jason can even open his mouth, Liam keeps going. Because of course he does. She calls him at night. And he goes outside to talk to her. I felt like the air got sucked out of the room. No, because why did he just say that? I looked at Jason again, and this man is now sitting there stiff. Like he's trying to think of something, anything to say. And I'm just staring at him like, say something. Fix this, explain it. But he doesn't, so I speak. I go, yeah? Jason, who's Emma? And now everyone's looking at him. His mom, his sister, her husband, everyone. And he lets out this awkward laugh and goes, it's just someone from work. Liam's exaggerating. Exaggerating. I almost laughed. Because no 6-year-old makes that up. And his mom kind of squints at him like she's not fully buying it either. She goes, why is she calling you at night? Good question. Jason rubs the back of his neck and says, it's just work stuff. She's on my team. Work stuff. Again. At night. Outside. Yeah, okay. And I could feel it. Everyone else was trying to move on, trying to make it less awkward. His sister even goes, kids say the funniest things, right? And laughs. But it wasn't funny. Not to me. Because now it wasn't just in my head anymore. Now it was out. And I could tell Jason was nervous. He kept glancing at me like he was trying to read my reaction. Like he was waiting for me to blow up right there at the table. And honestly, I wanted to. So bad. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to ask him straight up in front of everyone. I wanted to say, stop lying. We both know what this is. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something in me said, wait. Let him talk. Let him mess up. So I stayed quiet. And dinner kept going, but the energy? Yeah, completely different. Awkward, tense, forced. Jason barely talked after that. He kept his head down, picking at his food, checking his phone under the table. And I just watched him. Every move, every little reaction. And I knew. At that point I knew. It wasn't just a coworker. There was no way. After dinner, we're getting ready to leave. I'm helping Liam put his shoes on, and Jason's by the door talking to his mom. I overhear her say, if there's something going on, you need to fix it. And he goes, there's nothing going on. Lies, straight lies. I stood up, grabbed Liam's hand, and walked straight past Jason without even looking at him. Because if I looked at him, yeah, I would have snapped. The car ride home was quiet. Too quiet. Liam fell asleep in the back seat, and it was just me and Jason. And the tension? Thick. You could feel it. I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the steering wheel, trying to stay calm. But my mind was racing. Everything Liam said. Everything Jason said. All the little signs. It was all adding up. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. So finally, I broke the silence. I said, you want to explain what that was? Jason sighs like he's annoyed. Annoyed. And says, I already told you. It's just someone from work. I laughed. I actually laughed. I said, so your coworker calls you at night and you go outside to talk to her? And he goes, you're overthinking it. Overthinking it. That's when I lost it a little. I go, no, don't do that. Don't try to make me feel crazy. Liam didn't make that up. And he gets defensive. Starts raising his voice. Says he's a kid. He doesn't understand things. Oh my god. At that point I knew it was over. Because now he's not just lying. He's trying to flip it on me. We pull into the driveway and I turn the car off but I don't get out. I just sit there and I look at him. Really look at him. And I say, if I find out you're lying, it's done. And for a second, he doesn't say anything. He just stares at me. And that silence? Yeah, it said everything. That night he fell asleep like nothing happened. Like our whole life didn't just crack open at the dinner table. But me? I didn't sleep at all. Because now it wasn't just a feeling. Now it was real. And I needed proof. Actual proof. So the next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. Something that would change everything. And looking back, yeah, that was the moment I crossed a line too. Because what I found later that day was worse than anything I imagined. So the next morning I woke up before Jason. The house was completely quiet. Like too quiet, and my thoughts were just loud in my head. I just laid there staring at the ceiling thinking, I can't believe I'm actually about to do this. Because I already knew what I was going to do. His phone. I've never been the type to go through someone's phone, ever. I always thought if you have to do that, the relationship is already over. But at that point, it already felt over. I just needed proof. I got up slowly so I wouldn't wake him and looked at the nightstand. His phone wasn't there. Of course it wasn't, it was under his pillow. Red flag immediately. Like, why is your phone under your pillow? I stood there for a second just looking at him sleeping. Thinking you really don't trust me at all, or you just don't want me to see something. Either way, I knew it was bad. I carefully slid the phone out. My heart was pounding so loud I thought he'd wake up. Locked passcode. I tried Liam's birthday. Wrong. Mine. Wrong. I paused for a second, because then I remembered something. He always uses his own birthday for everything. I typed it in. It unlocked. Yeah, I already knew I wasn't going to like what I saw. I went straight to messages. Nothing weird at first. Work chats. Family stuff. Too normal. Suspiciously normal. Because where was Emma? So I checked recent calls. That's when I saw it. A number saved as just E, no last name, nothing else. And the call history was insane. Late night calls. Long calls, some over an hour. My stomach dropped. I clicked it and it opened a whole different chat app. Of course it did. And there she was, Emma, right at the top. The messages were not innocent. Not even close. The first thing I saw was her saying, "Last night was worth it. I can't stop thinking about you." I just froze. Like I couldn't even move. I kept scrolling and it just kept getting worse. Him flirting back. Him saying things like he missed her. Him planning when to see her again. All while I'm at home with our kid thinking he's working late. Then I saw a message that made my hands actually shake. She said, "Are you coming over again this weekend?" And he replied, "Yeah, she thinks I'm working late." She, not even my name, just she. I had to sit down because I felt sick. This wasn't a mistake or flirting. This was a full relationship. Behind my back. In my house. While I'm raising our kid, I kept scrolling even though I knew I shouldn't. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop even harder. She said, "I still can't believe Liam almost saw me, LOL. Almost saw her. So my kid had already been near her. Without me knowing. That was the moment everything changed for me. Because now it wasn't just cheating. It was creeping into my actual life. I should have left right then. Packed a bag. Took Liam, gone. But I didn't because I was angry. Not just sad. Angry in a way I didn't even recognize. So I put the phone back exactly where it was and got back in bed like nothing happened. And when he woke up, I acted normal. Too normal. Made breakfast. Took care of Liam. Even kissed him goodbye like everything was fine. But inside I was done. The second he left, I just sat there staring at the wall because now I had proof. Real proof. And I had a choice. Confront him right away or wait and catch him completely. And I chose to wait. Because I didn't want lies. I wanted him trapped in it. That afternoon I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Emma. My hands were shaking when it rang. I didn't even know what I was going to say. But then she picked up. And the second I heard her voice, I knew this was about to get a lot worse. The second she picked up, I froze. I didn't even expect her to answer that fast. And for a second I just sat there holding the phone like, "What do I even say now? Hello?" She said again, kind of confused. And I finally forced myself to speak. I said, "Hi, is this Emma?" There was a pause. Not a small one either. Like a real uncomfortable pause. Then she goes, "Yeah. Who is this?" My heart was beating so hard I swear I could hear it in my ears. I said, "I'm Jason's wife." Silence. Dead silence. And I swear, that silence told me everything before she even spoke again. Because she didn't sound confused after that. She sounded caught. She goes, "Oh. Just, oh," like she wasn't surprised. Like she knew exactly who I was. And that alone made my stomach drop. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "So I just want to understand something. How long has this been going on?" Another pause. Then she says something I was not ready for. "I didn't think you knew about me." That's when my grip on the phone tightened so hard my hand hurt. I said, "That's not what I asked." She sighs. Like actually sighs. And goes, "It's not like that." And I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. I said, "It's not like what?" Because I saw messages. A lot of them. So explain it to me. And there was this shift in her tone. Like she stopped trying to sound nice. She goes, "He told me you guys were basically separated." I swear I saw red. I said, "Separated? We live together. We have a 6-year-old. And she goes quiet again. But not guilty quiet. More like calculating quiet. Then she says, "He said things were complicated at home." That's when it hit me. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a whole story. A whole fake life. Making me sound like I was already out of the picture. I felt sick. I said, "So you knew he had a wife and you still kept going?" And she hesitates. Then goes, "He said it was basically over." Basically over? Like that makes it better. I stood up at that point because I couldn't sit still anymore. I was pacing in my kitchen like I was losing my mind. I said, "Did you meet my son?" And she goes quiet again. Too long of a pause. And that pause, yeah, that told me everything. I said, "Answer me." And she finally says, "I saw him once. Jason brought him with him to pick something up." I didn't talk to him though. My vision literally went blurry for a second, because now it wasn't just messages. It wasn't just calls. He had brought our kid around her, without telling me. I had to sit back down because my legs felt weak again. I said, "So you've been around my husband? Around my life? And you still thought this was okay?" And she snaps a little now, like defensive. She goes, "He told me you didn't care anymore, that you two were basically done." I didn't force him to lie. That line, I didn't force him to lie. It made my chest tighten because, yeah, she wasn't the only problem, but she wasn't innocent either. I said, "So what, you just believed him?" And she goes, "I wanted to." That honestly made me stop talking for a second. Because that's the truth no one wants to say out loud. People believe what they want when it benefits them. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Like she was thinking too. Then she says, "Look, I didn't know it was this serious." And I immediately cut her off. I said, "You didn't know a 6-year-old saying your name at a dinner table means it's serious?" Silence again. And this time it felt different, heavier. Then she says something I didn't expect. "He told me he was going to leave soon." My stomach dropped again. I said, "Leave? For you?" And she goes, "He said he was figuring it out." Figuring it out. Like we were just some problem on a checklist. I couldn't even respond properly. My mind was spinning. Because now I realized something even worse. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning. And I was the last one to know. I finally said, "You need to stay away from my family." And she goes quiet for a moment. Then she says, "I think you should talk to him before you assume everything." That line pissed me off. I said, "I already have proof." And then I heard something in the background on her side. A door closing. Like she moved somewhere private. And when she spoke again, her voice changed. Lower. More serious. She says, "He's not telling you everything." And that's when my stomach completely dropped again. Because I realized she wasn't done. And whatever she was about to say next was going to make everything a whole lot worse. When she said he's not telling you everything, I literally stopped breathing for a second. Because up until that point, I thought I already had the worst of it. The messages, the calls, the lying. I thought that was the full picture. But the way she said it, like she was holding something back, it made my stomach twist. I said, "What are you talking about? What else is there?" And she hesitated, like she was debating whether to even tell me. Then she goes, "He told me he was going to start looking for places, like apartments." I swear I almost dropped the phone. I said, "Apartments?" And she goes, "Yeah, he said he was planning to leave. But he wanted to make sure everything was lined up first." That word, lined up. Like I was just some detail in his exit strategy. I felt my throat tighten because this wasn't just cheating anymore. This was planning a whole exit. A double life that was about to become permanent. I said, "When did he say this?" And she immediately answers, "Last week." Last week. That hit me hard because last week he was still sitting at our dinner table. Still kissing our son goodnight. Still acting like everything was normal. And she keeps going like she can't stop now. He said he didn't want it to be messy. He said he was going to wait until after something at work finished up. I asked, "What thing at work?" And she pauses again. Then says, "A promotion thing. He said once he got it, he'd have more money to move out clean." That was the moment I felt something shift in me. Because now it wasn't just emotional cheating. It wasn't just lying. He was timing his entire life around leaving us. I sat down on the floor in my kitchen because my legs gave out again. I said, "So let me get this straight. He's been telling you he's leaving me, while telling me you're just a coworker?" And she goes, "Basically." I actually laughed at that point. Like a broken laugh. Because what else do you even do with that? Then she says something that made everything colder. He also said he was going to start telling Liam slowly so it wouldn't be a shock. I froze. I said, "Telling Liam what?" And she goes, "That you guys weren't going to be together anymore." I swear my vision went blurry again. Because now it wasn't just about me. He was already planning how to break our son's life apart without me even knowing. I stood up so fast I knocked my chair over. I said, "You're telling me all of this now. Why?" And there was a pause. A real one. Then she says, "Because I think he's lying to both of us." That caught me off guard. I said, "What do you mean both of us?" And she goes, "He told me he was single when we first started talking." My chest tightened. She keeps going like she's finally letting it all out. Then when I found out about you, he said you two were already separated. But the more I asked questions, the more things didn't add up. I said, "Like what?" And she says, "Like why he still lives with you. Why he posts family pictures. Why he never fully deletes anything." I stayed quiet for a second. Because yeah, that was Jason, always trying to keep every version of his life running at the same time. Then she says something that made my skin go cold. "He told me he was going to tell you this week." I said, "I tell me what?" And she answers that he was done pretending. Done pretending. Like I was just part of his act. At that moment, I heard my front door open. I froze instantly. Because Jason wasn't supposed to be home yet. And I could hear his keys. His footsteps. And I was still on the phone with her. She heard it too because she goes, "Is he there right now?" I didn't even answer her. I just whispered, "He's home." And she goes, "Don't tell him we talked." But it was too late for that because I could hear him moving through the house. And I realized something in that moment. I had two choices. Hang up and act normal. Or finally confront him with everything I just learned. And the second I saw him step into the kitchen and look at me, I knew I wasn't staying quiet anymore. Because whatever he was about to say next, I was already ahead of him. The second Jason walked into the kitchen, I swear everything slowed down. I was still holding the phone. Still on that call with Emma, but I didn't even move. I just looked at him. And he looked at me like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't both standing in the middle of a complete disaster. He goes, "Why are you up so early?" So calm, so normal. And that just made something in me snap a little. I said, "We need to talk." He immediately sighs. Like I'm inconveniencing him. Like I'm the problem. He drops his keys on the counter and goes, "About what?" And I actually laughed again. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. I said, "Don't do that. Don't act like you don't know." He pauses just a second too long. Then goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." And that's when I finally did it. I said, "Emma?" His face changed. Just slightly. But I saw it. I saw it clear as day. And he goes, "What about her?" I held up his phone. The same phone I put back exactly where I found it. I said, "You want to explain the messages? Or the calls? Or the fact she knows about our son?" Silence. Real silence this time. And I could hear Emma still on the phone, breathing on the other end, listening. Jason looks at me and says, "You went through my phone?" And I said, "Don't switch this. Don't you dare switch this." He shakes his head like he's already building his story. Like he's already deciding how to twist it. He goes, "You're invading my privacy." I almost lost it. I said, "Privacy? You're bringing another woman into our life." And he immediately goes, "It's not like that." I swear I almost screamed. Because that exact sentence again. Over and over, same lie. I said, "Then what is it like, Jason?" Because she told me everything. That got him to stop. He actually stopped talking for a second. And he goes, "You talked to her?" And I said, "Yeah, right now." That's when his eyes flicked down to my phone in my hand. Like he just realized this wasn't contained anymore. And then I saw it. Panic again. But this time deeper. He says, "You shouldn't have done that." And I said, "Oh, I shouldn't have. You shouldn't have been lying to both of us." He steps closer now, trying to lower his voice, trying to control it. He goes, "She doesn't understand everything." And I literally shook my head. I said, "Don't blame her. She knows more than you think." And that's when he changed tactics. I saw it happen. He goes softer. "Listen, I was going to tell you." I laughed again. I couldn't help it. I said, "When? After you moved out? After you figured everything out behind my back?" He doesn't answer that. Because he can't. And then I said the thing I knew would hit him. "Did you really think our son was just going to stay quiet forever?" That did it. His face tightened. Because now Liam was in it. And he goes, "Don't bring him into this." And I said, "You already did." For a second, nobody spoke. Not him, not me, not even Emma on the phone. And then from the hallway, I heard footsteps. Small ones. Slow. And Liam walks in, rubbing his eyes, half awake. And the second he sees both of us standing there tense, he stops. And he says the words that made everything collapse. "Why are you talking about Emma again?" Jason turns instantly. I turn instantly. And Liam, still sleepy, just looks at Jason and says, "She's the one you go see when you say you're working late." And I watched Jason's face fall completely. Because there was no fixing it now. Not with me. Not with Emma listening. And definitely not with our son standing right there. And that's when Jason said something I'll never forget. He looked at Liam and said, "Who told you that?" And Liam, so innocent, so unaware of what he just did, pointed right at him and said, "You did." And the entire room went dead silent. After Liam said, "You did," nobody moved. Like, actually nobody. Jason just stood there staring at him like he didn't know what to do with that answer. I was staring at Jason. Emma was still on the phone. And my son was just standing there in his little pajamas, rubbing his eyes like he didn't just blow everything apart. And then Jason finally laughs. But it's that fake laugh. The one people do when they're trying not to panic. He goes, "Buddy, you're confused." And Liam shakes his head immediately. Like, no hesitation. He says, "No, I'm not. You talk to her outside. And you smile." That word again, smile. That same thing Liam said before. That same thing that kept coming back like a knife. I could see Jason trying to recover. Trying to shape reality in real time. He goes, "We're done talking about this." And I finally stepped in. I said, "No, we're not done." And that's when Emma spoke through the phone for the first time since Jason walked in. She said, "He told me you already knew." Jason's head snapped toward my phone instantly. Like he forgot she was still there. And I said, "Yeah, I know everything." He looked between me and the phone like he was stuck. Like there were too many directions and none of them were good. And then he did what I expected but still hated. He tried to minimize it. He goes, "It's not what you think." I actually laughed again. I said, "You're still saying that?" And he runs a hand through his hair, pacing now. He says, "You went through my stuff. You called her. You're involving Liam in adult problems." That line. That one. Like I was the problem. Like none of this started with him. I said, "You involved Liam the second you brought her into his life." That made him stop pacing. Just for a second. And I looked at him and said, "You told her we were separated. You told me she was just a coworker. You were planning to move out. You were telling her you were going to tell me this week." His face tightened more and more with every sentence. Because he knew I had it. All of it. And Emma on the phone quietly says, "He told me he was leaving you." Jason immediately snaps, "Stop talking." Not to me. To her. And that's when everything shifted again. Because now it wasn't just me confronting him. It was both of us realizing we were being played. Emma says, "So which one of us is the lie?" And Jason goes quiet. Actually quiet. For the first time, no excuses came out fast enough. And that silence told me everything I needed. He was never going to pick a clean version of this. Because there wasn't one. And then Liam, still standing there, says something small that hits harder than anything else. He goes, "Are you leaving like you said?" Jason looks at him instantly. And I watched something break in his face. Because now it wasn't just about me finding out. It was about him being forced to answer his own child. And I stepped closer and said, "Answer him." Jason opens his mouth. Then closes it. Because what was he supposed to say? Yes, I was planning to leave you behind. Yes, I was building a new life without you. Yes, I was lying to both of you at the same time. He couldn't say any of it out loud. And that's when I realized something. All the control he thought he had. Gone. Completely gone. Emma finally says, "I'm done." Jason turns toward the phone again like that's the biggest problem now. And she continues, "Don't contact me again. I'm not part of this anymore." And she hangs up. Just like that. No dramatic speech. No goodbye. Just gone. Now it's just me, Jason, and Liam. And the silence is heavy again. Jason looks at me like he's trying to find a way back into normal. Like he can rewind this. And he says, "Quieter now. We can fix this." And I looked at him and said the truth I'd been holding in since the beginning. "No, we can't." And that's when Liam grabbed my hand. Like he felt it too. Like even at 6 years old, he knew this was done. Jason stood there for a long moment just looking at both of us. And then he finally said, "What happens now?" And I told him the only thing that made sense anymore. Now you deal with what you did. And I wish I could say that was the end of it. But the truth is, that was just the moment everything finally became real. And what came after that? That's where things got even messier. After that moment, everything felt different in the house. Not loud different. Not dramatic. Just empty. Jason didn't argue anymore. That was the weird part. No yelling. No trying to flip it on me. No excuses. He just stood there like all the energy got drained out of him at once. And I think that scared me more than anything he did before. Liam was still holding my hand. Looking back and forth between us like he was trying to understand why the room felt so heavy. He's 6. He shouldn't have had to feel any of that. Jason finally spoke again, but his voice was low. Almost tired. He said, "I didn't want it to go like this." And I laughed a little, but there was no humor in it. I said, "You didn't want it to go like this?" "Jason, you built it like this." He didn't respond. Because he knew I was right. Then he sat down at the kitchen table like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. And for a second, I almost felt something close to sadness. Not for what he did. For what he turned everything into. But it didn't last long. Because I remembered Liam. And I remembered everything I saw. The messages, the lies. The plan to leave. The way he was trying to quietly erase us while still living in our house. I said, "You need to pack something and go stay somewhere else." He looked up fast. "What?" And I said it again, clearer. "You can't stay here right now." That's when he finally reacted again. Not angry, just shocked. Like reality was actually hitting him for the first time. He said, "You're kicking me out?" And I said, "I'm protecting my kid." That shut him up. For a second, I thought he was going to argue. But he didn't. He just nodded slowly like he knew. There was no version of this where he wins anymore. He stood up, walked down the hallway, and started packing a bag. No big scene. No dramatic goodbye, just the sound of drawers opening and closing. And that somehow made it feel worse. Liam stayed close to me the whole time. He didn't ask questions anymore. He just held onto my shirt like he didn't want to let go. When Jason came back out with a bag, he stopped in the doorway. He looked at Liam first, then at me, like he was waiting for something. Forgiveness, maybe? I don't even know. And I said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. He finally said, "I'll come back when things calm down." And I shook my head. Don't promise him that. That hit him. I could see it. Because Liam looked up at him right after that, confused, and Jason had to look away. He walked out, and the door closed. And just like that, it was quiet. Too quiet. Liam looked at me and said, "Is Daddy mad?" And I knelt down right there and said, "No, baby. This isn't your fault. Not even a little." He nodded slowly like he didn't fully understand, but he trusted me anyway. That night was the strangest part. Because even though everything had just fallen apart, I didn't cry like I thought I would. I just felt done. Like something painful finally stopped growing inside me. Later, I found out more. Of course I did. Friends started talking. Things slipped out. The promotion he kept mentioning, it was real, but not the way he said. Emma wasn't just some random coworker either. She was someone he'd been involved with for longer than I knew. And the whole "I'm leaving soon" plan, that wasn't a maybe. That was already in motion. But what surprised me most wasn't even that. It was how fast reality shifted once it was all exposed. Texts stopped. Calls stopped. The version of him I used to know didn't exist anymore. It was like he disappeared from the life he was trying to quietly step out of. And me? I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Because I finally stopped guessing. I finally stopped ignoring it. And I believed my kid when he spoke up. A few weeks later, Liam asked me if we were okay now. And I told him the truth in a way he could understand. I said, "We're safe. That's what matters." And for the first time in a long time, he smiled without tension behind it. And that was it. That was the moment everything ended. And the moment everything finally started getting better. A few days after Jason left, it still didn't feel real. Like I kept expecting him to walk back through the door like nothing happened. Like we were just going to go back to normal. But that never came. Instead, it was just quiet mornings. Quiet nights. Me and Liam figuring things out one day at a time. The first time Jason called after leaving, I almost didn't answer. But Liam saw his name on my phone screen and got excited for half a second. Then stopped himself. Like he remembered something. That hurt more than I can explain. I answered anyway. Jason's voice sounded different. Not angry. Not confident. Just small. He said, "I just wanted to check on Liam." I looked at my son sitting on the couch drawing and said, "He's okay." There was a pause. Then Jason said, "Can I talk to him?" I hesitated. Then handed Liam the phone. Liam took it slowly. No excitement. No big reaction. Just quiet. Jason said something like, "Hey, buddy." And Liam responded with, "Hi." Just that. No daddy. Like before. No energy, just hi. And I watched Jason go silent on the other end like he felt that distance instantly. He tried to talk like normal. Asked about school. Asked about toys. But Liam kept his answers short. And after a minute, Liam just said, "Mommy's cooking," and handed me the phone back. That was it. No drama, no tears. Just change. After that, Jason started texting more. Asking if he could come by. Saying he missed Liam. Saying he wanted to fix things. But every message felt late. Like he was trying to catch up to a life he already left. I didn't respond fast. Sometimes not at all. Because now I had peace in my house. And I wasn't about to break it just because he finally understood what he lost. Then one day, I ran into someone who knew Emma through work. And that's when I learned the rest. Emma had ended things completely. No back and forth. No let's figure it out. She cut it off the same day everything blew up. Apparently, she told him she wasn't going to be part of someone else's broken home. And Jason didn't take it well. From what I heard, he tried calling her repeatedly after that. But she didn't answer. So in the end, he lost both sides. The home he was trying to leave. And the life he was trying to build. And weirdly, hearing that didn't make me feel satisfied. It just made everything feel finished. One evening, Liam and I were sitting on the couch watching a movie, and he looked up at me and said, "Mommy, are we okay now?" I paused for a second, because that question wasn't really about Jason anymore. It was about him feeling safe again. So I said, "Yeah, baby, we're okay." He nodded like he believed me. And then he went right back to watching his movie like kids do, when the world finally feels normal again. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen alone for a while. No phone buzzing. No secrets. No walking on eggshells. Just silence. And for the first time since everything started, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to go wrong. I just felt done healing from it. Jason didn't come back the way he thought he would. I didn't fall apart the way I thought I would. And Liam, he was okay. That's what mattered most. Because in the end, it wasn't the cheating that destroyed everything. It was the lies building up until even a 6-year-old could see through them. And once that truth came out, there was no going back.